Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. Week 1 is here. We've already had Thursday Night Football, the Lions beating the Chiefs to kick things off, and now Ricardo and I are here getting you guys set for Week 1 of the regular season for the Steelers and Eagles. And yeah, we're going to be looking ahead. A little bit of roster reactions to the 53-man roster being set. Talk a little bit about the season outlook. Talk a little bit about stat predictions. We've got a jam-packed episode. Ricardo, my friend, how are you doing today?
Dude, I am doing great. We are back. Oh my God. I don't know if you watched the Thursday night game, but
Oh, I watched the whole thing, dude. I was so entrenched in it.
dude, same. I was like, oh, football is back. It feels so good, man.
Yeah, dude. It was great to just have a full game, and even though that wasn't really the cleanest game
Right.
that you'll see in the NFL, it was just great to have football back and to be able to just sink your teeth into something NFL related for Week 1.
Yeah, man. It's and then tomorrow it's our turn, man.
Yeah, dude. Tomorrow's a big day. I got lucky. I have work at 4. Just right up until the end of the game, hopefully. So we'll see on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got Week 1 upon us, so we've got some stuff to talk about. And in our last episode, we gave our predictions on the rosters, so it's only fitting if now we kind of react to them a little bit and just how things transpired here. So let's start with the Steelers. I have their roster pulled up in front of me.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any big surprises to me. I guess the biggest thing, and we'll start on offense, no surprises at quarterback. Running back, I talked about Anthony McFarland being that last guy that had to get in the running back room. He was able to sniff out a spot. I guess the only spot that I really found a surprise come was in figuring out who the last roster spot was going to be when it came down to tight end or running back, or tight end or wide receiver, whether it was going to be Zach Gentry being kept as a 4th tight end or Gunnar Olszewski being kept as a 5th wide receiver. And obviously he's got some special teams capabilities as well. And the Steelers end up going with Gunnar Olszewski for that final spot. So he's the 6th wide receiver, and Zach Gentry, I believe now, is on the Bengals practice squad. So no more Zach Gentry with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Caught me a little bit by surprise at first, but the more I look into it, the more I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah, I think you even mentioned that he could be a candidate to be cut. Especially with Darnell Washington there, sort of already better as a run blocker than Gentry was. So, I think, you kind of touched on it, was like, it's not that surprising. Like, potentially they could keep 4 and have I just blanked on his name there for a sec. On Gentry, keeping Gentry, at least for like the first few weeks, and that way Washington can grow. But I guess they're just throwing him right in as the tight end number 2. So it's a pretty big. Again, not totally surprising move, but it's certainly notable.
Yeah, Darnell Washington's looked good all throughout training camp in the preseason. He's, gotten reps with the first team. I think he's definitely going to be used down near the goal line in situations. And, when you look at his frame and kind of the progressions he's already gone through in a short amount of time with the Steelers, just getting better in the run blocking game, which is really where he was expected to excel coming out of college. I think the Steelers were just like, hey, there's no reason to kind of dance around things here. This is our guy. And they, are obviously going to pencil him in as tight end too. And I guess they're comfortable with the depth that they have there. And just speaking on Gunnar Olszewski, I think it makes sense because I think he's probably going to be a scratch on most game days, but at least you have that depth there at the wide receiver position. And if someone goes down in a special team sense, whether, he's got to fill in on actually being, playing, special teams downs, like on the kickoffs or punt returns, or even if it is Anthony McFarland who goes down and, Gunnar Olszewski needs to come in and, be a kick returner, or Calvin Austin goes down and Olszewski's got experience as a punt returner too. So I think he provides a couple more different things for the Steelers team than necessarily Zach Gentry did, who was, purely going to be tight end 3, maybe a little bit of special teams ability.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's also interesting because like if you keeping, I mean, last year I think they kept what, five wide receivers, um, and I mean you got players on the practice squad. I mean,
Did they
like
keep five? I thought they kept six last year.
did they?
I
I'll
thought they
look.
kept. I'll try to
Um,
double count in my head. They had Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool.
oh no, they did have
They did
six.
have six. Yeah,
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 I was thinking of the Eagles there. They had five, but yeah, I mean, there's always you got players on the practice squad you could always elevate, and so I'm like, I don't quite understand sometimes the point of like keeping six receivers if one of them's going to be inactive, and like at that point just promote someone from the practice squad or something like that, or just I don't know. That's just my thinking of it. But
yeah.
yeah,
No, yeah,
interesting.
I think it's perfectly a valid reasoning. Maybe it also comes down to the fact that they have Rodney Williams ended up getting signed to a practice squad, their tight
Yeah.
end. They
Mhm.
also signed Des Fitzpatrick and Simi Fehoko to their practice squad, two wide receivers. I feel like they might have signed a third wide receiver, but I could be wrong to the practice squad. So maybe they just have more faith in Rodney Williams as a depth piece than they do in any of those guys on the practice squad as a depth piece. Should
Right.
something transpire there. But either way, Gunnar Olszewski beats out Gentry for that last roster spot, at the skill positions. As for the offensive line, everything as far as the starters is pretty standard. I was pretty accurate in my predictions of the depth. The only one I got wrong was Dylan Cook. I did not
Yeah.
have him on as that final roster spot. I had the Steelers trading for someone else to be a backup center, but Steelers are comfortable with Nate Herbig being the backup center, and Dylan Cook's actually got a really cool story. I don't know like the full details of it, but
Hmm.
he was like the type of guy that was played a different position in college and then was out of the NFL working like a grocery store or something. Moved to offensive tackle or whatever, and fought for a roster spot with Pittsburgh, and he had a good training camp. So just wanted to give him a little shout out for making the roster there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you also called this that Kevin Dotson would potentially get traded. I think you said that, or it might have been Kendrick Green, one of them two. I feel like you predicted.
I think
So
I had Kevin Dotson getting traded, and then he
yeah,
got traded right after our last episode, or like
yeah,
within a day or two. And yeah, I just had Kendrick Green. I had him getting cut
yeah,
straight
yeah,
up. I mean, but luckily the Steelers were able to trade him and get some value back. So good for Pittsburgh there. We
yeah. I
can
mean, that's
move to
surprising.
what's
Like
that?
that they even got anything back from Kendrick Green like that for someone who was struggling in training camp. The fact they even got something back, like I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
good. That's pretty impressive.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully he can be a little bit of a better fit in Houston's system. Under D'Amico Ryan's the head coach and Matt
Yeah.
Burke the defensive coordinator for the Texans. But I mean, I know that he made their active roster, so good for him, and maybe he'll get an opportunity. Just I hope for C.J. Stroud's sake he doesn't see the field that much. Um, Anyway,
Cool.
let's move over. Let's move over to the defense now. As far as the Steelers' defense goes, as far like the interior defensive line, I think I said they were going to keep seven guys, and that was what they ended up doing. All the top six, were what you expected. It really came down to who the last spot was going to be
Yeah.
between Armon Watts, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Braden Fehoko, and they end up cutting Fehoko, but they're able to keep him on the practice squad, which honestly I think is probably the best case scenario because
Yeah.
he wasn't going to dress anyway. He's kind of a little bit one dimensional in what he can do at the nose tackle. And when you have an experienced guy in Montrevious Adams and Keanu Benton, I think this makes the most sense. And then you're able to keep, Louder Milk, who's flashed this preseason a little bit, and Armon Watts, who's got the versatility to play, all the way from really the two tech out to like the four tech. So,
Mhm.
you've got some versatility by keeping him as well. So no surprises there. No surprises at outside linebacker either. It's the four guys that everybody projected: Watt, Highsmith, Golden, and Herbig. So that's the front. That's the defensive front right there, and I'm pretty confident in what the Steelers have going forward into this season, currently
Yeah.
constructed.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah, pretty much for the most part. I feel like we both predicted most of those players correctly. I mean, I feel like it was pretty straightforward, but
I, I,
I
I
mean,
think I might have had Loudermilk getting cut instead of
yeah,
Braden Fehoko, but again, it's they signed Fehoko to the practice squad, and Fehoko would have been a scratch either way had he been active. So now it looks like it'll probably be either Loudermilk or Watts who gets scratched on game day. But
yeah,
yeah, that's the defensive front. Moving to inside linebacker. The one surprise here, they didn't keep Tanner Muse, who I thought that they were going to hang on
Yeah.
to for his special teams ability, but I guess they decided they were well off enough without him, and they just stick to the primary four of Holcomb, Roberts, Alexander, and Mark Robinson. So I don't know. I mean, that was a little surprising to me, but again, it's just a practice squad or a guy that would have been just kept purely for special teams that they decide they're better off without.
Yeah, and Tanner Muse is now on the Chargers, so I mean, well, maybe he'll do better there, but I mean, still, that's not all that surprising, I think.
Not too consequential either way.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and I'll close things out with the second. Well, I'll also just So next up with the secondary, as far as corners go, it's pretty much the initial five were kept that I predicted. And Peterson, Wallace, James Pierre, Joey Porter Jr. Excuse me, I predicted. Well, Elijah Riley is a little bit more of a safety, but Elijah Riley a slot corner, and then Chandon Sullivan, and then Pittsburgh also with a very savvy move to bring in Desmond King, who got cut, and he's going to be some great depth for this team. And I said one of my concerns was, they're a little thin at corner. Should somebody go down, the fact that then you have to rely on James Pierre. Now you don't. Now you have Desmond King, who's been in this league for a couple of years. He's had some really good seasons at various points. So I'm very happy with that depth signing. And then, nothing shocking at safety either. It's the three main guys in Keanu Neal, Minkah Fitzpatrick, DeMonte Casey, and then Miles Killebrew, who was named to the special teams captain. And then obviously I mentioned Elijah Riley, who's kind of that hybrid slot corner safety, provides a little bit of depth there. So I'm pretty happy with where this secondary is at. I mean, I guess the only surprise was I guess maybe you could say Trey Norwood. And I don't think he was signed to the Steelers practice squad, which I was kind of sad about. I mean, he was an undrafted free agent, so, and worked his way up with the Steelers. So, now I don't think he's actually signed with the team since being cut, which is a little bit surprising to me. But the Steelers wouldn't have tried to keep him on their practice squad. But I know they also really like Trenton Thompson at the safety position, who they were able to retain. So either way, that is how the safety position in the secondary shook out for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Trey Norwood's still a free agent as things stand. But I mean, the Desmond King signing was definitely a pretty good one. I mean, he's pretty versatile. He can play in the slot and outside. I mean, and he's also a kick and punt returner. So I'm pretty sure he's also a former All-Pro.
That's what I thought as well, dude. I mean, he's got like quite the resume for being a guy that, I mean, obviously things can happen throughout a player's NFL career, but I mean, for the Steelers to get him, it's dude, he is an All-Pro. He won an All-Pro in his second season with the Chargers.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty good. Pretty good resume and an experienced player to have in that secondary, especially with. I mean, it takes away potential of James Pierre having to play meaningful snaps, as you said. So
yeah, man. I mean, he started 13 games last year, had 2 interceptions and 89 total tackles. So I'll take that as my fourth corner any day of the week. And, it also even alleviates the pressure off of, I think, Joey Porter a little bit too. So definitely a top signing after roster cutdowns by Omar Khan. And then real quick to close things out with Pittsburgh, it was Presley Harvin, Chris Boswell, Christian Kuntz. No surprise here. That was everything you expected. So Steelers 53-man roster set. Let's move over to the Eagles now and get some reaction on their 53.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a few notable things. So first, I mean, the Eagles kept 3 quarterbacks. They kept Mariota. I mean, he's probably still on thin ice at the moment, but I mean, Brian Johnson thinks he can develop him. So I mean, fair play to him. Hopefully, he does help develop him as a passer, especially because I mean, the preseason was a disaster, but they keep 4 running backs moving to that position. And then the tough one obviously had to be Trey Sermon. I mean, I feel like he was always the guy on the outside looking in, really. And keeping Kenneth Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, I mean, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott, I feel like those were no-brainers, really. I mean, I don't think there was any other way this was going to end up. The other interesting thing is, I mean, 4 wide receivers currently on the roster. The Eagles don't have a punt returner or a kick returner at the moment. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to elevate someone probably like Britton Covey, who's on the practice squad, probably going to elevate him tomorrow to fill in as like a 5th receiver. And fill in those punt and kick returning duties. It's really interesting. I mean, last year, Britton Covey was on the roster, but I'm just like it's interesting how Howie Roseman's kind of using the practice squad and sort of this certain number of elevations that they have.
Yeah.
It's not even just this position, but I'll get into that a little bit more. But four wide receivers. I mean, at first I'm like, well, that's not really you're not really working with much there. I mean, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zacchaeus. I mean, those were all pretty straightforward. So, I mean, it's just really interesting to see how that shook out. And um, I don't know if you have any reaction to that, to just four wide receivers, because that to me is like,
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think the interesting part of it too is the fact that they traded for the tight end from Denver.
yeah,
And I don't know how much of a factor that went into it, but it's just the aspect of like, hey, maybe they knew they were going to be able to retain some of these other wide receivers. I don't know if Britton Covey's the only wide receiver on the practice squad.
no, they've got a few others on there. They've
Yeah,
got Devin Allen, Greg Ward Jr., Joseph Ngata.
yeah. So I
So
mean, maybe it was the fact that they knew that they were going to be able to retain plenty of wide receivers on the practice squad that they were like, hey, we can go out and get this guy from Denver, Albert Aquubinam. I don't even know if
yeah,
I'm
I don't know
saying
how
his
you said
name right, but
either.
like they can go out and get him and then retain him on the roster with that extra spot. Maybe I think it's just a little bit of roster manipulation by Howie Roseman
Yeah.
to the team's benefit, and I mean, and also doesn't Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell have experience returning
Oh yeah,
a
well yeah, Boston Scott does, yeah, as kick returner.
if they had to, if they really decided that or they something came up that I don't know how the logistics of that work on game day, but if they can elevate Britton Covey and figure out a way to make it work so that they have that experienced return man and someone else gets scratched so that it can happen. Good
Yeah.
on Howie Roseman to kind of manipulate the roster. I do feel like I remember doing that a bit last year as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a wizard with how he does things. He does things his own way, and it typically works out. So, I mean, I'm not going to question it. But yeah, no, the Eagles sort of going off Albert. I'm just going to call him Albert now, the new Marlin. But he's the fourth tight end. I've been reading that he might be a healthy scratch on game day, which I mean, fair enough. But like, well, I mean, they kept Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. I mean, fine, but um, I mean, you obviously had to keep Albert because you gave up a draft pick for him, so like there was no point in cutting him if you were going to give up capital for him. I just thought maybe one of them two would have been cut, Jack Stoll or Calcaterra, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the case. And I mean,
Especially because they're more or less similar players, in what they do.
yeah, so that'll be intriguing to sort of look at tomorrow when how the scratches are and all that. But moving to offensive line, I mean, it's pretty much the players I predicted. I mean, Mailata, Lane Johnson, Fred Johnson, Jack Driscoll at the tackle positions, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Tuapeta, the guard positions, Jason Kelsey, obviously at center. And I mean, we talked about this last week. Cam Jurgens will probably slide in if Jason Kelsey were to get injured. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, it's really no surprise on the offensive line. I mean, it's still
Isn't this the exact 9 you predicted for the O line?
yeah, pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
there you go.
yeah, I mean that's not surprising though. It's like who else would have made it? Like all the roster cuts weren't surprising, at least in those offensive line positions. So
Yeah, no, there was nothing there that really stood out as a whoa. I can't believe this is what the decision was.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, it works out. I mean, it's still a pretty deep offensive line group. So no concerns there really. They're still going to be one of the best in the league this year. So I guess moving over to the defensive side of the ball. So the first thing that stood out to me is that the Eagles kept 7 defensive linemen. Those being Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, obviously our rookie, Milton Williams. Moro Ajomo is actually on the roster. It's still not on IR,
Mhm.
which I mean, I guess he's healthy. He's actually not even on the injury report, so I think he will be good to go. Marlin, Contavious Street, those are the seven. I
I
thought,
love how we just have Marlon and Albert
yeah,
now.
because I'm not even gonna try to pronounce her last name at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Even
No,
though
that's great. That's
Marlon
great.
Tupelote has been on the team for a few years now, but I thought Marlon was. I mean, I think I even put this in the roster predictions that Marlon would get cut, but he's still
You
on the
can't you
team.
can't escape him, Ricardo. You can't
I
escape
can't. I'm
him.
like, come on, give me a break, man. I was like, now I got someone else on top of that, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm not too surprised by that. It's just, I mean, the Eagles like to rotate their defensive tackles. I mean, quite a bit. So, and keeping players fresh, and that's always something that the Eagles have done for a while. Whoever the coordinator was. Yeah, that's pretty interesting one. And then defensive end slash edge rushers, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett still on the roster because of financial reasons. Otherwise, he'd be gone. There was a report that came out that he wanted to get traded, but don't think that's going to happen
Hmm.
at all at any point. So we're stuck with the penalty machine. So that's cool. Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith, Patrick Johnson, the outside linebackers. I mean, I predicted those two, though. Those are pretty straightforward. And then, I mean, inside linebacker position, this is where it got interesting, but I still predicted this to be right. Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham, Christian Ellis. So, I mean, we retained some players in the practice squad. We actually brought back Nicholas Moreau on the practice squad, Ben Van Summerman. Those two potentially, if something were to happen, if a player were to go down, hopefully not. But it all signals indicate that it'll be Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham leading in the inside. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
this is where I want to just pose the question to you. It's like I feel like a lot of this scheme, we've been talking about it in like a similar sense to kind of how the Eagles ran things last year. But I mean, like, do you think there's going to be like some differences that we'll see in like how they line up personnel as far as with like Sean Desai now at the helm? Because I know I've talked in the past about like the Steelers and them doing things differently with the three safety look and potentially trying to alleviate some of the pressure off the inside linebackers. But I mean, do you think there's any kind of wrinkle that they could do on defense now to kind of, like, I mean, not that they ever really overexposed their inside linebackers last year, but it
yeah,
feels like that's going to be a position that they're going to try to, really kind of protect a little bit and, not put in, vulnerable situations.
yeah. I mean, I feel like sort of the three safety look could be something that kind of masks the inside linebacker position a bit. I mean, I don't know. They didn't really use that much in preseason, so I'm not sure if that really is going to be the answer. But I think it's probably going to be similar to last year where you have the two inside linebackers. Really, I mean, Nakobe Dean obviously calling the play. So, I mean, both. I mean, Gannon and Desai both kind of similar in terms of their influence. By why am I blanking on his name? By what is his name?
Oh, Vic Fangio?
Yes, both influenced by Vic Fangio. Thank you. So, I mean, I don't think it'll be all that different. The only real schematic difference that I've noticed and that I've been reading about is just the corners being more pressed, like press coverage, more of that, more physical at the line of scrimmage than last year. So, I mean, yeah, in terms of linebacker, I don't think it's going to be all that different. Which, I mean, I don't know if that'll be good or not, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. But
Yeah, yeah.
um,
But no, you're right. You predicted that inside linebacker completely, and I don't think there's any real surprises at the outside linebacker either.
yeah, and then moving to the secondary. I mean, okay, we kept seven. I think I actually predicted that too, didn't I? I think I said seven um, cornerbacks. I
I
think.
think you did say seven cornerbacks. Yeah,
Which I'm thinking about it after the episode. I was like, yeah, that seems like a lot, but they did it. Actually ended up doing that.
they did it
Um,
anyway.
Yeah, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Vontae Maddox, Josh Jobe, Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, and Mario Goodrich. And the big surprise was Josiah Scott getting cut. And I believe, where did he go? He was signed by a different team, and I'm blanking on where it was. Josiah Scott went to a different team. Well, he's no longer with the Eagles. Is my point, which was the big surprise. I'm kind of sad about that because he actually played well, like decent, like meaningful snaps last season. But Yeah, I mean that was I thought it would have been Josiah Scott over Mario Goodrich, but I mean clearly the Eagles saw something a bit more in Goodrich than Josiah Scott. I mean I think that the Eagles knew what they were getting with Scott, so I mean I'm gonna support that. I guess I'm not gonna yeah I'm not gonna be like oh well that was stupid, but
Yeah.
um,
And I mean, I just think that, even with given that this corner room is just so talented, as long as you don't see a deterioration in Slay or Bradbury with age, and Avonte Maddox can kind of bounce back after the injury he suffered last year. I
yeah.
mean, it's like this corner room to me is as good as any in the NFL. I mean, Josh Jobe is such an underrated player, and Keely Ringo is a rookie that's got some potential. So there's a lot to get excited about, even outside some of those top dogs in this corner room.
Yeah, I'm excited for them. Hopefully, those the starting three can stay healthy, but and age doesn't catch up to Bradbury and Slay. But
Yeah.
yeah, to wrap up the secondary safety, Reed Blankenship, Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans made the roster over Kayvon Wallace. So
Which
Wallace is
that surprised
finally
me.
gone. Yeah, that
I know.
surprised me
I
too.
think you didn't you call Kayvon Wallace getting cut.
I think I kept him on the roster. Actually, I was like, I
Uh-huh.
think just because familiarity and special teams, like I thought that was his value for the team. Like, yeah, I know what you were getting with him defensively, but just with his familiarity in the organization, I thought they would keep him. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I was surprised to see him go, but
yeah, I was definitely a little surprised. I was like, oh, okay, well, not have to deal with that anymore with Kayvon Wallace and saying every season he's going to get cut, and he actually finally gets cut.
yeah.
But and then Sidney
Now,
Brown is that last one. That'll be. I can't
and
wait to watch Sidney Brown. Oh my, like he's one of those players I'm really excited to watch.
yeah,
Whenever he's on the field, but um,
absolutely. And I mean, he'll have an impact on special teams right away. One more thing with Kayvon Wallace, it's ironic enough that he gets signed then after he gets cut by the Eagles to the Arizona Cardinals and John.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's I was gonna say, yeah, I'm pretty sure he went to the Cardinals, and yeah, man, that organization's that's a different topic. Well, I'm not gonna get into that, but moving to the special teams, this is the most fascinating part of it. The Eagles do not have a punter, still, and it's a day before the season starts. So they do have Aaron Ceebos on the practice squad.
Dude,
So
he's gonna get elevated or something. I mean,
I
I will say,
yeah.
dude, Braden Mann is still out as a free agent after the Steelers cut him.
Yeah, I know, and they've been working out punters for like the last week, and they haven't signed a single one of them. So I'm like, all right, you have a certain number of practice squad elevations for each player. I think it's two or three. So I'm like, okay, fine. I hope it's just like 1 week, like just this week you elevate C plus and get someone else. But I was reading something where it's like, Howie Roseman might be just like manipulate. He might just sign a punter every 3 weeks, like after every practice squad elevation for a punter, and then just rotate them throughout the season,
Mm.
which is really interesting. I don't think anyone's
That is
done that
interesting. That I don't know how I feel about that strategy.
because I mean, punters don't really see the field all that much, and so I mean, and especially with the Eagles' offense being one of the top units, I guess maybe the thinking is why even have a roster spot for a punter if we could use that somewhere else, and then just use this strategy to I mean, throughout the season, see what happens. But I mean, I'm not like, I mean, obviously there are other more valuable positions. So I'm not totally
Yeah,
like
but I feel like
against
that's
it.
almost discrediting the punter position too much. I mean, just talk about that punt that he had in the Super Bowl that set up the Chiefs with good field position. I mean, it's like, are you going to go through a whole season just rolling the dice with the punter position, and then what do you do come the playoffs? I mean, then I think that leaves even more of a question mark. I mean, I get that you have other positions that may be of more importance, but I think that's almost discounting the punter a little bit too drastically.
I mean, hey, maybe if the Eagles find a punter they like throughout the season, assuming they do this, then they're going to keep him and then they'll actually like have a set player for that position. But at the moment, it
Yeah,
seems like we're just going to do a rotation, which again, I don't think has been done before. But
I don't know if
um,
it has been done either. Nothing
it'll
comes to memory of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, then it works. If it doesn't, I mean, then Howie Roseman knows. Then like the rest of the league knows too. Then, but yeah, I mean, and then moving to the other position, Jake Elliott, obviously the kicker. Still one of the best in the league. Rick Lovato, long snapper. So that's the 53-man roster there. I don't think, yeah, there weren't
And
too many
it
surprises, honestly, but I think just the number of players at certain positions was more surprising than the players themselves who made it.
I agree with you, and it looks like it's still going to be kind of changing as we go here through the next
Yeah,
couple hours. Not necessarily hours, but there's going to be different players that you're going to see on the field that are necessarily listed on the 53 right now.
yeah,
So
exactly.
um, definitely going to be changing things. But let's get in now to kind of the season outlook and prediction for both of these teams. I mean, week 1 is tomorrow, so
Oh yeah,
we'll kind of do what we did last year and go down the schedule and say, win loss is what we think is going to be the record for both of these teams. And then we'll get into some player statistics and props, whether we think they'll go over or under certain listed numbers. So I'll start off with the Steelers schedule here again. And I guess we'll just go week by week and just kind of give what we think the schedule will be.
yeah,
And I think week 1 is really an interesting game for both of these teams. I'll save the Eagles for later when we talk about it. But I think week 1 for the Steelers is an interesting matchup because I do honestly think there's a lot of factors. And I don't want to preview the game too much, but I think there's a lot of factors that could lend the game to kind of go either way to either of these teams. And I think if the Steelers get the win, it would be a huge statement win for this organization. Yeah. But again, I think this is one that could just go, back or forth at this point. It's hard for me to really talk about the game too much before we get into the preview.
yeah.
But I'm going to say the Steelers shock some people and they get the win week 1 at home against San Francisco.
I like that a lot. I mean, I'm going to give it a loss, but a very, very close loss. I think it's going to be, well, again, I'll also say my thoughts. But yeah, I think the Steelers will lose by maybe a field goal.
All right, totally valid. So we'll go to week 2 at home against Cleveland. I mean, A, it's a division rival. B, it's at home. And C, I mean, it's against, a Cleveland team that, when it's this talented a division, Cleveland is a team you got to beat. So I have the Steelers getting back-to-back wins to start off the season.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with that. I mean, especially with Deshaun Watson's play, really, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. So I think, yeah, I mean, the Browns roster is fairly talented. It's just the quarterback position that's the
it's so tough because I don't know where the Browns are going to be because they could win the division or they could be a bottom 8 team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you there.
They just have such a wide range of where they could end up.
Oh, for sure.
But we both chalk it up as a win there. Yeah. Week 3 at the Raiders. I think this is going to be a close game. Just because I think Vegas is going to be a little better than people say, but I still have the Steelers going on the road and getting the win.
Yeah, I for some reason I don't like the Raiders this year, and I don't know if that's maybe Garoppolo or just the Raiders team as a whole. I'm not impressed by them, so I think the Steelers roster is better. So I think they go in and win too.
Week 4 in Houston. I think it's just going to be a rough season for Houston. They'll scrape out, a couple of wins, maybe get to 3, 4, 5 range, but not against Pittsburgh. I have Pittsburgh at 4-0 right now.
Yeah, I have them at 3-1 right now. That's a win for them.
And then week 5, real big game before the bye week at home against Baltimore. I mean, rivalry game at home. You need you need to win these rivalry games at home. Last year they closed out the season beating Baltimore on the road. Baltimore is going to come in with a vengeance, but I think the Steelers are able to find a way to get the victory at home. I have them going into their bye week 5-0.
Man, I wouldn't be shocked by that, honestly. If you can beat the Niners, you can beat just about anyone. That's just how I see it because the Niners roster is so good. So I mean, I'm giving the Steelers the win too against the Ravens. I mean, that's such a massive. You need to win the home game, especially.
Yeah, I mean that's a game that carries just so much weight of the momentum going into the bye week, or all of a sudden dealing with that loss and then going to kind of have to reevaluate, and obviously the division opponent at home and everything. So that's a big game coming out of the bye week 7 at the Rams. They have the extra week to prep for a Rams team. And, I'm just not crazy about this Rams roster either. So I have them going 6-0, starting the season 6-0 undefeated.
I have them dropping this game because I don't know. There's something about the Rams are kind of a mystery team. Like you don't really know what you're gonna get. They're not as good as in seasons past. And Stafford's health's always a big question mark. So I still for some reason think the Rams are gonna win that. So I have the Steelers at 4-2 then.
Okay. Then they come back. Then they have 3 games in a row at home, kicking it off against Jacksonville. This is where I have their first loss of the season. I mean, I'm not going to have Pittsburgh going undefeated at home to this stage, and I think Jacksonville is just a really good team.
Yeah.
Steelers riding high at this point, but I think that Jacksonville is able to scrape out a win here.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's going to be a pretty damn good team. So and Doug Peterson's leading it. I love me some Doug Peterson. No offense to Mike Tomlin at all, but I just think Trevor Lawrence and them they're going to be a really good team. So I'm also giving them back-to-back losses. So
okay, valid, all valid. So then the way that I'll present it this way: Week 9 and 10, again, 2 more home games: home against Tennessee, home against Green Bay. I think both these teams will be relatively close. I mean, Tennessee wants to run the ball, keep it low scoring, drain the clock. Green Bay, I think, it's going to be interesting to see how they pan out as a team. But I think ultimately at home after the loss to Jacksonville, I think both these games will be close, but the Steelers will pull them out. So I have them winning both of these games at home.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to Week 11 now. On the road at Cleveland. Rivalry game. I think Cleveland's able to get this one. Again, I think that the Cleveland's going to be a solid team. I think they get the win against Pittsburgh at home. So they split the series with Cleveland. They lose this one.
Yeah, I'm also with you there.
And then let's see if you're with me here at Cincinnati. I also have the Steelers losing this one, dropping back-to-back losses on the road.
Yeah, I do agree with you there too. That's in Cincinnati. So I think that's I think that's an L for them. But
yeah, no, we're in agreement. But hey, it's a good thing Week 13 they have an awful team and they can bounce back and get right at home against Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals. So I have them bouncing back there.
Yeah, easy win. That they should demolish them then. But
all right, Week 14. I want you to go first on Week 14 at home against New England.
I have them winning this.
I do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, they lost Week 2 last year. Like, I need them to avenge that loss against the Patriots.
They could have won that game, too.
They should have won that game. If they won that game or the Jets game Week 4, they're a playoff team. But they just narrowly lost both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I have them beating New England, and getting the dub there. Week 15, they go on the road at Indianapolis. I think the Steelers are just the better team. This is where it kind of gets into the hardest. It's unfortunate for Pittsburgh because I think their hardest stretch of the schedule is their last 4 games because 3 out of 4 of them are on the road and 2 of them are rivalry games. But on the road at Indianapolis, I think it's important that the Steelers get that win because I just think that the Steelers are a better team overall. It's a rookie quarterback. Indianapolis has a lot of drama going on this season. You got to get that win even though it's on the road.
Yep, I'm with you. That's a win for me.
So a pivotal game, Week 16 at home against Cincinnati. This is a game that it was really kind of hard for me to predict, but ultimately it was a little bit of a toss-up, and I have the Steelers splitting and winning at home against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
All right, let's go, Ricardo. Let's go.
Hey, the Steelers, you don't sleep on the Steelers. That's all I'm saying.
Don't sleep on the Steelers, man. I mean, the way we're going right now, this is projecting pretty well. Week 17 at Seattle on the road, tough environment to play in. I think the Steelers lose a tough road game here, coming off of an emotional game against the rivals. I have them losing Week 17.
Yeah, I also do. Going to it's not called CenturyLink anymore, Lumen Field, but yeah, that's a really tough environment. I think they do lose too.
Yeah, and I'm very high on the Seahawks this year. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they could actually contend in the NFC West to a certain degree. So
wow, okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's a hot take a little bit, but don't be surprised if Seattle wins the division. I'll go out there on a limb and say that.
Okay, I didn't think. Yeah, I haven't heard that one yet, but I like.
All right, well now you heard it from me right before the season starts. We'll circle back around if Seattle wins the division and pat myself on the back. All right, and then closing things out, Week 18 in Baltimore, rivalry game similar to last year, closing the season out in Baltimore. Steelers got that clutch come from behind win. I just don't see Baltimore losing this game. A game that at what I currently have the Steelers record prediction at, and maybe it works that way with yours as well. This is a game that could potentially decide the division. I have Baltimore winning at home. So the
Yeah.
Steelers dropping back-to-back games to close out the season. That puts my record for them. You agree with that? I think I saw you nod your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that puts their record at 12-5 on the year for my prediction for them.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's what I have their ceiling at. I'm like 12-5, I think is their ceiling. I don't know.
What based on your win-loss, what'd you have their record at?
10-7. Like I think they're good enough to win at least 10, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they won 11. I mean, the division games, I feel like they're just we're both in agreement. They're going to split all of them.
Yeah.
They're tough teams. I mean, tough division. So I mean, but they're going to be like really, really important, as you said. They always are, and it's just they're such tough teams in their own rights.
So I'm okay with everything that you said about their losses.
Yeah,
49ers week 1 is a tough loss. Jacksonville, really good team. I think this year they're going to win the South. The thing I disagree with you on, the Rams, man, that's
I know.
such a pivotal game. I think that they can pull that one out. And that's the difference between what 11-6 and 10-7, which it could. I mean, hey, in this tough division, in this tough conference, I mean that could be huge implications there. Whether they can, I think I don't think we're going to see a team as a wild card at 9-8, dude. I don't know. I mean,
I
I
don't
don't know if
either.
that checks out for that. So I mean,
No,
you got
I
to
mean,
get to at least 10 wins.
yeah, I mean, I think they will. And if anything, I was gonna say that Rams game is the one I look at now, and I'm like, maybe they take that. But yeah, I feel like it's either 10. It's gonna be 10-12 wins, I think, for the Steelers. No, it's no less than 10. That's just
I'll take that. I mean, I think that there are definitely going to be some tough games. I mean, obviously, all the division games we have them splitting,
yeah,
but you never know if a team is able to take 2 from Pittsburgh. I think that game in Vegas that I talked about, I know you're not as high on them, is potentially a little bit of a game they could fall into a trap there. I mean,
essentially.
back to back at home against Tennessee and Green Bay. I mean, I could see them dropping one of those. And then New England's also still, I think New England's going to be a good team, even though it's at home. So there's certainly games in here that
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's going to they're going to have to be on their game. But if they really have a season like I think that they can, I think that 10-7 could be, a potential floor for them. I think if they're below 500, I'm going to be disappointed. If they're
No,
9-8,
they won't be below 500. Come on, man.
they
Mike
won't be.
Thomas
They
never
won't.
had a losing season.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
sub 500 season. That's not happening.
I mean, I think frankly, if they're anything below 10-7, I'll be a little disappointed because I think this team is a playoff team.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm totally with you. I'm absolutely going with this team to make the playoffs. I haven't been
All right, man. I like
so.
it. I like it. I'm going out on a limb and giving them 12-5. So,
I mean, I like that. That's fair. That's fair. I'm totally with that.
all right, sounds good. Sounds good. We're pretty close to simpatico here. So let's talk about the Eagles a bit and their schedule.
Oh, this schedule is. I mean, initially, the first 6 games are fairly like they're not that difficult, but after that, it gets really tough. But we'll get into obviously the first week. Patriots in New England. What are they doing with Tom Brady? I don't even know. I don't care enough about that. But they're some sort of ceremony for him at halftime. I mean, even with all that, I don't care. I mean, yeah, the Patriots defense is good and all, but offensively, I'm not too scared of them. So I give the Eagles the win to start off the season.
I think it's a potential tough opener, but I think the Eagles still get the win. I think it'll be closer than people maybe think.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
You know what the spread is on this game?
I think it's.
I guess we can save that for when we preview it. We'll save it for when we preview it.
Yeah, I think it's 3.5.
Okay.
Eagles, yeah. But yeah, so we're both in agreement on the win there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Week 2, hosting Minnesota. I love hosting Minnesota early in the week. God, gotta beat on Kirk Cousins again. It's Thursday night football. And if you saw what happened last year on Monday night, I mean, just absolutely pummeled them. And I think it's not going to be any different this time around. I think the Eagles are going to win this again. So 2-0 to start off, if you're in agreement with me. Yeah,
I have them winning a week 2 against Minnesota. I mean, I have Minnesota winning their division, But I mean, I think it's going to be a repeat of kind of last year when these two teams faced off. The Eagles are just the better team for.
Yeah, and I mean they lost Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook, so and then those are huge losses when you think about it.
Yeah.
And,
And
but
and their defense also had some significant losses. I think Minnesota's still going to put up points, but I mean, I think their problem's going to be trying to stop teams, frankly.
yeah, I'm with you there. But
All right.
week 3 at Tampa Bay, they're such a weird team. By that point, Baker Mayfield might be benched, but who knows? After 2 weeks, he's done. But it's Monday Night Football, which is also strange. But regardless, I think the Eagles are still better than them, and they have the better quarterback. I mean, there's no controversy there whatsoever. So 3-0 to start
Yeah,
off the season.
dude, I think Tampa Bay is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, I don't know if that's a hot take. I feel like some people are saying, "Oh, you never know. Maybe they could, compete in a bad South division." Like,
Eh,
for as bad as this team was last year with Tom Brady, I mean, I think they are about to go off a cliff. Maybe win like 4 games is their ceiling.
they definitely could,
I
honestly.
I have Philadelphia winning this one.
Yeah, that should be a win. Week 4, hosting the Commanders. Last year, if you remember, we hosted the Commanders and we lost our first game of the season to them. After going unbeaten for like 10 weeks, but we're getting revenge. We're back at the link. We're definitely avenging that loss. We're gonna win. We're gonna go 4-0 to start the
I
season.
have them winning at home too. I like the Commanders, some of the things they've done, but I have the Eagles getting the win at home.
Yeah, I mean, Commanders, whatever. I still think they're a pushover, which is probably arrogant on my part, but besides the point. Week 5 at the Rams. I'm giving the Eagles the win. I just, again, on paper, I think they're better. Quarterback situation still, I think, better than Stafford. So, yeah, I'm going 5-0 to start the season.
We are both in agreement. 5-0 to start the season. I'm not high on this Rams team. You saw me talk about that with the Steelers. 5-0.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, maybe I should change that to a win for the Steelers. But yeah, in any case, week 6 at the Jets. I actually might be going to this game. I might.
Oh, that'd be sick if you're able to get there.
But the only thing, so for context, the Jets have never beaten the Eagles. I believe they're like 0-9, I think, something like that. But I think this might be the year that changes. And I hate that I'm saying that, but I think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are legit. That Jets defense is really, really good. And I think the Eagles might finally lose to the Jets for the first time.
Dude, I'm also in agreement with that just because the Jets, they're a good football team. And it's the fact that the Eagles have back-to-back away games. And after a week all the way out in LA, that's a lot of travel to then have to go to, New York. So I have them losing this one to the Jets.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good game. This is going to be a good game. I definitely hope I'm able to watch it. Do you know what time this game is by chance?
I think it's a 4:25 kickoff.
I'm probably not going to be able to see it, but who knows? Maybe I will be able to. We'll
say. Hey, maybe it gets flexed. Actually, I don't know if that helps you, but probably not. Yeah, so moving on to week 7, another AFC East opponent. Hosting the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. I mean, I love the storyline of Tua versus Jalen Hurts, but
I didn't even think about that.
I have to back my Bama guy, so I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts, and especially it being at home, it's gonna be really rowdy at the link. So I'm gonna have to give it to the Eagles, and I mean I think the Dolphins are a pretty damn good team. I think it's going to be a close game, though.
I have the Eagles here too, man. I think they'll bounce back at home after that loss to the Jets that I hypothetically have them losing. So I have them beating the Dolphins here.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, then week 8 at the Commanders, back again with them. I think we're going to sweep them. It won't be easy, but I think the Eagles are still a better team on paper. So I think they'll win that one and be 7-1.
I think the Eagles are, I agree with you, they're the better team on paper, dude. But I'm telling you, I just have some kind of feeling about this Washington Commander team, dude. I think that they're going to be better than people think. That defense, is not a bad defense whatsoever. They've got weapons. I think there's some kind of mojo there with the new ownership, man. I think they're going to win some games this season. I have the Eagles dropping this one on the road.
See, I mean, I think their ownership, yeah, it's definitely gonna be way better than the last one. I mean, that's not really a tall order, but I don't know. I feel like this season it might not be as good. But like next season, like going into next season, I think they're gonna be really good. Yeah, they have pieces in place, but quarterback position, Sam Howell, who knows what that'll be and if he
Yeah,
gets
that's still
benched or
that's
not.
still totally up in the air how Sam Howell's gonna perform.
Yeah, so that's why I think the Eagles are going to win that. Again, I think it'll be close, but it won't be
Yeah,
easy.
I have them taking the loss on the road.
Totally valid.
Okay.
Week 9 hosting the Cowboys. I hope that we actually get to see Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott because last season they were both injured at one point. So like when they faced each other. So I really hope that they can actually play each other, face off, show who's the better quarterback, which is obviously Jalen, but that's my bias. So I think the Eagles are going to win that at home. Again, it'll be tough, but I think they can do. I think they can win.
This is so similar to how the Steelers have a rivalry game against Baltimore before their bye week. The Eagles have
Yeah,
a rivalry game against Dallas before their bye week. I think the Eagles get the win and carry that momentum into the bye week.
yeah, and then that's such a big one too because you don't want to lose this one at home and then have to go into Dallas and try and win there because that's way tougher, obviously, and
Yeah,
it has division implications. But
yeah.
yeah, so they
No,
go into the bye. Yeah, sorry, what were we gonna say?
I, I have them 5. I have them 7-2 at the bye.
I have them 8-1 going into the bye.
Okay.
So week 11 at the Chiefs, Monday Night Football, Super Bowl rematch that is gonna haunt me. But whatever. In any case,
Dude, this this
I
is this this may be the juiciest matchup on the entire NFL calendar this year.
really you think that?
Dude, I mean, I was like just looking at it, just how the game went last year, how it ended last year. The fact that both of these teams are playing each other coming out of their bye week. So both of these teams are going to have an extra week to prepare for each other, dude. I think there's going to be some fireworks in this game, man. I'm juiced up for this one.
No, I think so too. Just because it's in Arrowhead, I just don't think that the Eagles pull it off this time. Or like, I just and also Andy Reid's unbeaten against the Eagles, and so I just think by that time they'll have the receiver position figured out after that disaster that was Kadarius Toney and their other receivers and on Thursday night. But I think
Chris Jones will also be
I was
back.
going to say, yeah, Chris Jones might be back, so I think they're going to be a much better team than they were on Thursday. So I think the Chiefs are going to hand the Eagles their second loss.
I'm giving the Eagles the win, man. I just think that
Okay.
there's some vengeance that they're coming for in this game, and I think they're going to go out there. I think it's going to be an electric game, an electric atmosphere.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, I don't know, just a gut feeling. I'm going with the Eagles here.
I would love that. I'd like to avenge last season's the Super Bowl loss, but again, Andy Reid for some reason just has our card, our number on that. So
Yeah,
then we go
this is
back
a
at
really
home.
tough portion. Week
Yeah, I was
11,
going to say this is a brutal stretch.
really from week 11, the close of the season is like pretty tough.
Yeah, the second half is at least the next from week 11 to week 15. It gets really tough. You might say week
Yeah.
16 too, but yeah. So back home against the Bills. This is I was really torn on this one. I just think the Bills could be a Super Bowl team. They could be. I don't know if they will, but I for some reason my gut's telling me the Eagles are going to drop this one, especially after an emotional game against the Chiefs, and especially if they win too. But I do think the Bills might win this one, and back-to-back losses for the Eagles is what I have.
So I have week 12 and week 13, they're at home against Buffalo, and then week 13, they're at home against San Francisco. I have them
Yes.
splitting these two games at home. I mean, pick your poison, which one they split, or which one they lose, which one they win. I kind of like your logic about coming off the emotional game against Kansas City. They may lose the Buffalo game, but that's kind of how I see it playing out. They're going to lose one of these two games at home.
Yeah, that's also I was also I'm like it's one or the other.
Yeah.
And then kind of going off the Niners, the night it's going to be such an evenly matched game, and just thinking about
This could have implications for the one seed in the
oh, it
NFC.
will. It absolutely
Yeah.
will. If we have it like you do, where the Eagles lose this one, then I think the Niners will have the one seed. But if the Eagles win like I have them, then potentially the Eagles could have the 1 seed again. But I feel like the Niners. I mean, last year they were pretty injured. They were pretty banged up, and obviously the championship game we knocked two other quarterbacks out. So the Niners are definitely going to be way more fired. I mean, like just really, really, really like motivated to win that game. And I mean, Debo Samuel, especially with all his crying and pouting about about if Brock Purdy had been there, they would have won or whatever. But I do think the Eagles are going to win this one again, and it'll be so close. These games are just so tough. That's what happens when you're the best team in the conference. You just get the tougher opponents, the first place teams in each division. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna say the Eagles win that.
All right.
um, week 14 at Dallas. Now this is why I said the Eagles have to win the first week or the week 9 matchup at home because I think the Eagles are going to drop this one. I feel like in the past 2 seasons they split the series. So I mean I think yeah in Dallas I just in Jerry's world I think they're gonna lose. But again close. I don't know if you agree with me on that. That they take
I have the Eagles actually going into Dallas and winning in this one
wow.
because I know it's maybe a little bit surprising, but I actually think that there's a chance Dallas misses the playoffs this year, and I think the Eagles sweeping them would contribute to that. So
Oh, it
um,
certainly would. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm gonna go with the Eagles. You know, getting this win on the road.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
I like your
I know
thinking on
you like that. Yeah.
I actually love that, but I don't know. The honest part of me is like, I feel like we'll
Yeah.
split. We typically do, but um, so yeah, week 15, another game on the road. I mean, that's in Seattle, similar to the Steelers. I mean, they both play Seattle at Lumen Field. Again, tough environment, and I'm gonna stick with that logic and say the Eagles drop this one too. So that would be back-to-back losses for me. I don't know what your
I
thoughts
have
are.
the Eagles losing in Seattle too. Again, I'm high on Seattle. It's a tough
Yeah,
place to play. It's on the road, so I have the Eagles dropping this one.
yeah, and then weeks 16 and 17 are both at home hosting the Giants, and then the Cardinals, the lowly Cardinals. I want to beat them up so badly, but I think we're going to win both those games. Honestly, I think the Eagles are going to win out. At
I
the
also
Giants,
actually have the
yeah,
Eagles winning out. I think that they're going to find kind of their best ball after that. Dude, that's such a tough week 11 through week 16 is such a tough portion at Kansas City, home against Buffalo, home against Seattle or San Francisco, in Dallas, in Seattle, and then a rivalry game at home against the Giants. I mean,
yeah,
then the emotional implications, even though they're going to beat Arizona, I mean, you're going up against Jonathan Gannon, so that's an emotional game. And then you close the season on the road against a rival. So the
yeah,
second half of the season's definitely tougher. I have them dropping two of those last, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have them dropping two of their last 8 games. But yeah, I have them winning out, closing out 3-0 against the Giants, one against the Cardinals.
yeah. I have them going 4-4 in the last the second half of the season. So the final record 12-5 for me at least.
I
What's
had them at
yours?
13-4.
13-4. Okay. I
Yeah.
feel like they have to. I don't know. They might come down a little bit, but like they might decline a little bit, just or regress a little, just because. I mean, offensively, defensively, they were one of the best. There's always that little regression, but I feel like their ceiling is 14-3, maybe 15-2, but I don't think they'll get to that. I just think because they play such difficult opponents that they're going
Yeah.
to lose a
I
couple more
What do
games.
you think their floor is?
I feel like their floor is 10-7. Maybe that's
I
too
agree with that.
low. Okay, yeah.
That may be a little bit too low. I mean, I agree with that. That's probably still, I don't know if that's winning you the division, but
No,
that's
I don't
definitely
think
still
it
getting
is.
you in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think 11-6, you could still win the division
yeah,
and have that be more of a floor. Like I think the true floor is 10-6, but I think like a floor that's realistic is 11 and
11.
11 and 6. Did I say
Yeah,
10 and 6 before? 10-7. 10
yeah,
and
yeah.
7 is like the absolute lowest I could see this team going unless something really falls off the rails.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there, but I mean, it's gonna be tough. I think the Cowboys are still gonna be good. The Giants, I mean, they have a brutal like first half of the season, so I mean, And Commanders, who knows? We don't know what we're gonna get with them. But I
Yeah.
mean, again, there has not been a repeat winner since 2004, so it feels like something has to change at the top.
All right. Well, that's the season kind of outlook and schedule prediction. Let's go over into some of these props, the over unders. I wrote them down. I don't know if you have them in front of you. I could just read them off if that's
Yeah,
easier.
you can read them off. Yeah, that's
Okay,
cool.
I got them off FanDuel just because that's what
Yeah.
I use when I do a little wagering. So let's start out with the quarterbacks and passing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts is set at 21 and a half. What do you think, Ricardo, on that number?
I think over. I
You
mean,
think he
I
goes
don't.
over?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be running or brushing as much. I think he'll try and preserve himself a little more. But yeah, I think he goes over with that. I feel like 24
I
to
mean, he
28.
had 20 he had 22 passing touchdowns last year, and you know he's going to
Yeah,
pass more. So I also take the over.
yeah, I'm going over on that too. Yeah.
Okay, let's do Jalen Hurts's passing yards. That's set at really obscure number 362, 300, 3,625 and a half.
That's so straight. I'm going over because I mean last year he missed 2 games, and again, as we
Yeah.
just said, he's going to pass more probably. So I think he goes over on that.
I'll take the over on that too. Um, all right, we can go to Kenny Pickett now. His number is set for the touchdowns at 17 and a half. He had seven
Yeah.
passing touchdowns last year in 12 games. Um, that's actually a really good number for him.
It is, yeah.
And I think we actually, when we did the player projections and and kind of those episodes, I think I actually said look for him to be in like the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah, you
So
did.
that's really tough. I'll take the over just for the sake of it and say that he gets 19 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think I have him at 18. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go over on that.
Okay. And then his number for pass yards is 3,300 and a half.
Wow, okay.
And yeah, last year he had 2,400. So
And he
that's
didn't
a big
start the
number.
season, he missed a game, so
I'm going to have him go over that. And I think it's more likely he goes over the passing yards than he does the touchdowns, just because I think this team is still going to want to run the ball when they're in the red zone.
yeah, I think he's
Down
gonna
near
go
the goal line.
get at least 3,500 passing yards. I think he'll get there.
And
Maybe it'll win.
I could also see Pickett rushing for a couple touchdowns, if I'm being honest.
Oh, he definitely could, yeah.
I don't have his rushing stats in front of me here, but yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Last year he rushed for 3 touchdowns. So
yeah, I was
I
gonna
could
say.
see him rushing for 5 to 7. It wouldn't surprise me in a full season.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Is there an over under for that for his rushing touchdowns?
There wasn't one that was posted.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah.
This is just stats that were posted. But let's go to rushing now,
Oh
and
boy.
let's talk about DeAndre Swift. So his TD line is set at 4.5. He has had at least 5 all 3 seasons rushing the football in his career.
Yeah, I would say over as long as he's healthy.
You think he's going to be the back down near the goal line?
I think so. I think he will.
Okay.
If it's not him, then it might be Gainwell. It's one of them two. I think it's going to be Swift though.
Okay. All right. He's also put up some decent numbers in the pass attack too. So just something that I just caught my eye here.
Yeah.
And then pass yards, or excuse me, pass yards. Wow. Rushing yards. His line is set at 500 and a half. He's gone over that number all 3 years with the Lions, but obviously you've got kind of more of a committee this year with the Eagles. So what do you think of that number? I also have him going over the 4.5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is where it's been really tough for me because no idea how this running back situation is going to shake out, and it might change week in, week out. So I might go under on this, or actually no, I'll go over, but it'll be really close.
I'm going to screw around and say the under, man. I think they're really going to mix things up this year with the running attack.
Okay, that's valid. I really was on the fence for that. I don't know. I think he can get 500.
Yeah, no. I mean, I see. Part of me says that. Part of me is also like, this guy gets hurt every year. So maybe that
Yeah,
factors into it. I mean, he hasn't played more than 8 games, or hasn't. Oh, excuse me. He hasn't played a full season his entire NFL career. He's always had something that crops up.
yeah,
Um, so like I'm just more comfortable with the under here, and like who knows if a guy like Gainwell or Penny could potentially kind of take the lead back role. Then at the same time, I could also see him playing 15 games and being the leading rusher with like 900 yards. So, but I'm
yeah.
gonna go with the under.
Okay,
Um,
valid.
Jalen Hurts rushing numbers over under. I'm just gonna say his lines over under 10.5 touchdowns rushing.
Oh man, I think he goes under. I don't. I mean, the QB sneaks. I feel like is all he's gonna really do if they get to the 1 yard line. But I think he's gonna go under.
Yeah,
Again, protecting himself a little more, like I said too.
he had 10 in 2021, 13 last year.
Yeah.
I'll take the under. I think he kind of reverts back a little bit and kind of protects himself a little bit. 725.5 rushing yards for Jalen Hurts over under.
Mm, I say under, but just under.
I'll
I
also take the under. He's been right around this number his past 2 years. He's been in the mid 700s the last 2 years. So I'll say
yeah.
he's right around like I'll say 701 on the nose.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
All right, let's go to Najee Harris now. And he had his over under is set at 6.5 rushing touchdowns. Last year, he had actually the first 2 years of his career, he had 7 in both seasons.
Yep. So I think over.
I think the over, I mean, this is kind of like if Kenny Pickett goes under on his passing touchdowns, it's because Najee Harris is going to get a lot of rushing touchdowns. And I
Yeah.
think we kind of saw on the backstretch of last year what Pittsburgh ultimately wants to be this year with how much they ran the football. And they were really conserving Najee Harris health-wise so that he could play, a healthy season to start the year here. So I have him going over on the rushing touchdowns. His over under for rushing yards is set at 875.5. And
Hey.
he had 1,200 his first year and 1,000 last year. So I have him definitely going over this number as long as he stays healthy, which he's played all 17 games both of the first 2 years of his career. I have him going over.
Yeah, I'll take the over too. I think it might be a little closer than I don't know. I feel like I'll go with the over on that.
All right. Let's get into some of these receiving numbers now. A.J. Brown, over under 8.5 touchdowns scored.
Last year he had 10, I believe. Or
Last year he did
11.
indeed last year at 11, I'm sorry.
He had 11, yeah. Sorry, what was the number again?
It is set at 8.5.
I think he's going to regress because Dallas Goedert is, I mean, hopefully going to be healthy this season. I feel like Dallas Goedert might get more targets. So I want to say over. I feel like he's going to get 9. Maybe I'm being generous. This is tough. I'm going to say over, just over.
Okay. Over 8.5 for a car. I think I am going to lean with him going under, especially because he's dealt with injuries the 2 years prior to coming to Philadelphia. If something crops up, if they give more targets to Dallas Goedert, maybe Devontae Smith runs into a streak where he gets a couple touchdowns. I'm going to have the under on A.J. Brown touchdowns.
Okay, valid.
His yards are set at 1,125.5.
I think he'll get over that. I mean, well, how many do you have last year? Like 1,400, almost 1,500, something like that?
Last year he was just shy of 1,500.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think even if he does deal with some injury to some extent, I think he's going over that number. I think he's got 1,200 written all over him.
Yeah, at least 1,200, I think. Yeah, I'm with you.
That connection was just so electric last year, what they were able to do. All right, let's do Devontae Smith now. His over-under for touchdowns is set at 5.5. I'm trying to pull up his stats from last year real quick.
I think he had
7 last year.
Yeah.
I'm taking the over.
So yeah, I was gonna say I think he's still just getting better as receiver, and that's scary for other teams. So I think he's gonna get more targets in the red zone. I don't know. I'm gonna go over too.
And then his yardage is set at 925.5. Last year he was just shy of 1,200.
I'll go over on that. I
I'm
think
smashing the over on this, man.
yeah.
I think like what you said, bro. He's just kind of coming into being that guy, like really knowing what he's doing at this level. I think we could see him take off and really establish himself as one of the best wide receivers in the game this year. I'm high on Devontae Smith this year.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, let's go with it.
All right, let's close things out with the Eagles and receivers and go to Dallas Goedert. And again, this is just what was posted on the sports book. So,
Right.
if there's anybody that you were curious on, I tried to find,
Oh,
stuff
that's
on
fine.
all the big
Yeah, yeah,
receivers,
yeah.
running backs, everything. But his over under for touchdowns is set at 3.5. He had 3 last year.
I think he'll get over. If he's healthy, he's over. He's going over on that.
I think I tend to agree with you. Yeah, I'll take the over here too. I think Jalen Hurts and him just have a connection as well.
They
So
do.
I'll
Yeah.
take the over. Yardage is set at 700.5, and last year he had 702 yards.
If again he stays healthy, I think he will get over that mark.
I think I'm going to go with the under, man. With how high I am on Devontae Smith and the fact that I still have AJ Brown going over his number, I think Goddard's going to get more looks in the red zone. But
Okay.
I'm going to have Goddard hovering right around 700. I think it's going to be just under.
Fair. Yeah, totally valid. Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the Steelers now. We'll start with Deontay Johnson. His over under for touchdowns. Well, he doesn't have one because he didn't catch any last year.
Yeah.
Kind of surprises me. And hey, we got to also like recognize the fact like Deontay Johnson had 7 touchdowns in 2020, 8 in 2021. His rookie year he had 5. Like last year he had 0. That number's going to regress back to the mean, and I think Vegas knows like they can't set a number for him like 6.5. But like if they were to set a number like 3.5, everybody would smash it because they know he's going to regress back to the mean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's no number for him as far as touchdowns. 800.5 receiving yards. He's had more than that 3 out of the 4 years of his career, not counting his rookie year. Former 1,000-yard receiver.
I'm going over that. Give me that over.
I also have him going over. I think he goes over that. I think this offense is going to do really well this season.
Yeah, they're going to air it out more, man.
Let's go to George Pickens now.
Pickens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Ricardo. Yeah, Ricardo and George Pickens. You slimy. Ricardo took Pickens from me right before I was about to take him in my fantasy draft. So
I was like, it's me or it's Nick. I was like, he's still on the board. He's still available. It's like, I'm taking him.
Oh my gosh, dude. He's the type of guy, he's gonna have such a good year that you're gonna have this is a keeper league we're in. You're gonna take him this past year in the 7th round, and he's gonna be your keeper pick next year because of the value he's gonna give you.
Yeah, I'm that's my hope, man. Sorry, Nick.
Well, his touchdown line is set at 4.5. I think I was on record earlier saying that I think he's gonna get to 5 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take the over in that sense. Again, I mean, if Pickett's only throwing like 17, 18 touchdowns, you imagine, like 5 go to Deontay, 5 go to Pickett, Pat Freiermuth maybe gets 2 or 3, that's already at 13. Maybe there's a running back that catches a touchdown or 2. You never know if there's an explosive ball to Calvin Austin. Red zone to Allen Robinson. So I think they're going to spread it around. So I have him going over, but just slightly. I don't think he's going to be like a touchdown. I think he said he wants double-digit touchdowns. I'll give him like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how realistic double digits is, but I would give him 5 also. So over on that too.
And then he's got the same receiving yardage prop as Deontay Johnson, 800.5. I have him flying over that. I think he's a 1,000-yard receiver. I already bet money. I bet the money on this with FanDuel when it was set at 775.5. It's now up to 800.5. This guy is flying over that. As long as he stays healthy, I think he's easily a 1,000-yard receiver.
Oh, I'm so with you, dude. He's going over. He's smashing either of those lines, even when you betted them.
All right, man. I've got a couple defensive props for you real quick. We'll go through them fast, over-unders. Alex Highsmith sacks, 9.75. I have him going over as long as TJ Watt's healthy.
Over, yep.
Josh Sweat, 7.25 sacks.
Over.
TJ Watt, 13.25 sacks. I already bet money on it. He's going up to like 18, 19. Who knows? Maybe he'll break the record.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna break it.
Darius Slay interceptions, 2.5.
Under.
Oh,
I think
I'll
we get
take the
two.
over. Minka Fitzpatrick, 3.5 interceptions.
Ooh. Oh, over.
I'm gonna take the under.
Okay.
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes 3.
God.
All right. Sounds good. Let's close things out here and talk about some storylines for week 1. Let's start with the Eagles going to New England. What do you kind of have your eye on in this game?
Oh, I mean, the biggest ones have to be the changes at the coordinator positions. I mean, offensive coordinator, new one, Brian Johnson, defensive coordinator, Sean Desai. I mean, those are I mean, schematically, they might not be all that different from um, the coaches before them, but it'll still be interesting to see how the offense plays out, and if they can develop a different aspect of Jalen Hurts' game, or just unfold a different aspect of their offense. And I mean, just sort of some background on Brian Johnson. He's been an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in college, or he was from 2010 to 2020, and then became the Eagles quarterback coach in 2021. And I've said this multiple times that he's known Jalen Hurts since Hurts was 5 years old. So, I mean, I don't expect this offense to regress very much. But I mean, looking into it, I mean, it's a tough defense they're going to face. I mean, the Patriots were, I believe, top 10 in a lot of categories, or at least passing wise, and sacks they were top 10. So it's definitely not going to be easy. That's for sure. I mean, it'll be a really, really tough test for Brian Johnson in his first game as the offensive coordinator as the Eagles for the Eagles. And I mean, should I jump into Sean Desai a bit, because I feel like there's a lot of layers there that are
I mean, I don't really have a lot to add on that necessarily. I mean, the couple things I have to say on this game are more like, where I see, like what to watch for, or like a matchup to watch for.
right.
Because yeah, so if you want to talk about Desai a little bit, go ahead, and then I really just have one main thing that I'm going to keep my eye on how this game's potentially going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a retool defense. Obviously, a lot of notable losses: Hargrave, T.J. Edwards, Kazir White, Marcus Epps, and all them. Notable additions: Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Zach Cunningham, Sidney Brown. I mean, it's really going to be a question of like how many snaps players get, who's lining up against who, at least safety wise against tight end, and as I said before earlier on in this episode, it's just based off preseason. It seems like more disguised blitzes, kind of more press zone coverage, more specifically. So I expect the corners to be really up in the faces of the receivers. Again, I think it'll be tough. And one of the aspects I hope that the Eagles improve on is run defense, because they were middle of the pack. And I mean, the Patriots, I believe, are more of a run first offense anyway. So again, this is a good test to see where they are. Jordan Davis, especially Fletcher Cox, up the guys up front. See if they can improve on that aspect against the Patriots offensive line that's not great, but certainly can still hold their own.
That was exactly what I was going to bring up. Is I'm going to have my eye on how kind of this revamped Eagles defensive line goes up against a Patriots team that wants to run the ball first and foremost. So that's definitely where I'm going to kind of keep my eye on, and we'll see if the Eagles, the Patriots are going to try and keep Jalen Hurts off the field. We'll see how like Jalen Hurts when they're on the field, whether they can just put up points in bunches and kind of, get a lead that the Eagles can't really, catch up to. So
yeah.
I know you said the line on this game was the Eagles favored by 3.5. FanDuel has it shifted to 4 now in favor of the Eagles. The over-under is set at 45. So where are you leaning on this? And obviously the Eagles are the money line favorite.
I mean, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I have it. The score prediction is 23-17 Eagles, but it might be within a field goal, honestly. So if we do the math, that's under, I believe. So
that is the under, yeah.
points.
Yeah.
but I do think the Eagles will win, only just because again the Patriots defense will keep uh, the team in the game essentially because they're pretty good. So
I like the under in this game, and I would also stay away from that spread if I'm the Eagle. I'm staying away from the spread period
yeah,
because I just don't like it one way or another. You know, that's a number where I could see the Eagles winning by a touchdown, but I could also see the Patriots keeping it really close throughout, and I don't want to sweat that, you know?
right, yeah. I'm with you there.
So I guess we will close things out. I'll talk about the Steelers game against the Niners briefly. Um, the big storyline here is the fact that, Nick Bosa wasn't with the team up until
Yeah,
recently, because that's what it ultimately comes down to. I mean, the Steelers obviously looked so good in the preseason. Um, I think their first team offense scored 5 touchdowns over the 3 games.
yep,
So there's a lot to be excited about for Pittsburgh. And I think the fact that, yes, this 49ers offense is or this 49ers roster, excuse me, is one of the most talented in the NFL. But I
yeah,
think the fact that specifically their defensive front, hasn't really gotten to play together with Nick Bosa there. And they've got the new piece in Javon Hargrave that was just added. So
yeah,
I think there's going to be a feeling out period here. Who knows if Nick Bosa's on a little bit of a pitch count because he's maybe not in perfect shape. I think it's also the fact that you've got the new defensive coordinator in San Francisco as well with
yeah.
D'Amico Ryans leaving for Houston. So
Mhm.
I think there's some things that are going in Pittsburgh's favor here as far as what the 49ers defense is dealing with. Now, when it comes to, more of the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball for the Steelers, I think the fact that, it is Brock Purdy. He looked very good last year, but, he's going up against a really tough defense here in Pittsburgh. And, obviously he wasn't there for all of training camp, wasn't there for all of preseason.
Yep.
And, someone made the point, Brock Purdy may have yet to really face a player that does as much as Minkah Fitzpatrick does on a defense and who can confuse quarterbacks as much as Minkah Fitzpatrick does on the defense. So that was
Yeah.
something I heard on a TV show or something, one of the national shows when they were talking about this game a little bit. And it kind of struck me. And I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that and see how, Purdy kind of does. But we will see. I think that this is a game for Pittsburgh that if you lose it, it's going to be chalked up as, hey, that's a really good 49ers team. If they
Yeah.
play them close, that's especially well. If Pittsburgh wins this game, they're going to put themselves right on the map, kind of the way that the Lions just did with their win against the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is
Yeah.
a game, and I also want to know, this is a little bit of a revamped O-line for
Mhm.
the 49ers as well. They
Yeah.
lost Mike McGlinchey. They brought in some new faces. Daniel Brunskill left for the Titans.
Mhm.
I want to see if TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith can kind of go to work a little bit and make Brock Purdy's life hell. And then obviously I kind of talked about the back end with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be a low scoring affair. These are two very good defenses that I think are going to, really kind of dictate the game a lot. But
Yeah.
I don't know. You have any thoughts on kind of the storylines or game itself, Ricardo, before I get into the line and everything like that?
No, I mean I'm with you on that. I just ooh. I mean
I think
thinking
there's a
about it,
lot of there's a lot of cards that are being dealt in the Steelers' favor as far as Nick Bosa, new defensive coordinator, first game.
yeah.
Now adding Javon Hargrave to the mix on defense. Brock Purdy was, dealing with injury, wasn't healthy for the full preseason. So I look at it and say, hey, this is arguably, a top 3 team in the NFL in the 49ers. The Steelers, it just may be good timing that this is when they get them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. It'll definitely be low scoring. I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I just think the Niners might be running the ball a bit more, so
Mhm.
that'll be I think the toughest challenge, at least
Yeah.
stopping them. On defense.
And the one player that's questionable for Pittsburgh is Larry Ogunjobi. So seeing
Yeah,
how this Steelers run defense that, that was maybe their Achilles heel last year, how do they handle Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell? So the
yeah,
line for this game is set at 2.5 in favor of San Francisco. I tend to stay away from that. If that line's just in an awkward spot, I think Pittsburgh's going to win the game. I mean, I said that in our season outlook. The over-under set at 41.5, which even though that's a low over-under, I could see this being like a I could see this being like a 20-17 game.
Dude, I had that as my score prediction. Yeah.
Did you actually?
Yeah.
Yeah. One way or another, I can see it coming down to a field goal. I mean,
Yeah.
we will see. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be super interested to see how this first team offense moves the ball against the 49ers. I'm going to take them to win just because of I just feel like if you're going to have to play the 49ers this season, this is the time you want them.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I mean, I think either way, it's one team or the other loses by 3, but I will say the Niners, but I hope it's the Steelers.
All right. Sounds good, man. I think that is all for this episode. We've gone pretty long here, but sounds good. Any final thoughts?
No, man. I mean, good luck to you and fly Eagles fly, man. We're here. It's Sunday, man.
Dude, the season is back. We will break it down in our next episode, what happens in week 1. Everybody, you guys just enjoy this week 1 slate of games. We'll see you next time.